Harpie Lady is one of the original archetypes, and one of the most oddly designed due to the poorly created Harpie Lady retrains. However, despite these issues of time and the deficiency of some of its monsters, the deck remains rather nice due to strong spell and trap support. So what type of push in the monster lineup might lead this deck to more competitive pastures? As usual, I'll start the deck build by looking at the direct support. The original Harpie Lady is, not surprisingly, outdated, but still serves a purpose for those players that want to try to take advantage of Inferno Reckless summons in this deck. However, since I do not take the Inferno Reckless summons route, I do not run the original Harpie Lady. Harpie Girl is rather worthless because it is a low power, no effect monster that is not supported in any effective way, for while Phantasmal can protect it from battle, at 500 attack she really can't do much at all. Harpie's Pet Dragon is also a card that has been rather significantly power creeped, but did retain some playability in rank 7 Harpie strategies due to both effects of Harpie Channeler. However, since I do not partake in the rank 7 strategy, I have no reason to run the original Pet Dragon. Harpie's Lady Sister is depressingly bad due to its restrictive summoning condition and the fact that there is little value in actually getting it onto the field in the first place. If there ever were a card that needed to be re-released as a retrained, this is the one. Harpie's Queen is not great, but does serve an important purpose, filling that role as the old school level 4 high attack archetype field searchers, with Hunting Ground being a potential nightmare. The searching role is all the more useful, besides just being a rather nice 1900 level 4 beater. Due to this versatility and the need for Harpie monsters in general in the deck, I run 3 copies. Cyber Harpie Lady is just an amalgamation of Harpie Lady and Cyber Shield. It is rather disappointing because the designers did not add anything interesting beyond the 500 extra attack. Despite this general blandness, I do run 1 copy because sometimes that 1800 attack is just what you need from your quote-unquote Harpie Lady. Harpie Harpist is one of the 2 best monsters in the archetype. As one of the newer Harpie monsters, Harpist has the more practical effect of being renamed Harpie Lady when on the field or in the graveyard, granting it equal utility without having the deck build limitation problem. The search effect is very useful for maintaining a level of playmaking, largely through the search of Channeler, in addition to increasing the general speed of the deck. The bounce effect is a nice cherry on top of the sundae, but will typically not be applicable outside of an interaction with Dancer off of a Hysteric Party. Finally, her 1700 attack is not too shabby either, 3 copies. Birdface is one of those old school searchers and just isn't good, skip it. Harpie Channeler is the second of the 2 best monsters in the archetype, for its ability to both fuel speed and advantage through Harpist's search effect and producing versatility in the summons and deck thinning. Unfortunately, the second effect, changing its level to 7, accomplishes little because summoning Pet Dragon is not the most consistent thing in the world, even though Channeler can do it off of her own effect, because sometimes you might draw it, and almost always it's just going to be a dead draw in your hand. In fact, in this particular deck build, this level change effect is actually a detriment. Also, similar to Harpist, it has the more appropriate name change effect. 3 copies. Harpie Lady 1, 2, and 3 are old, poorly designed cards where 2 and 3 have been incredibly power creeped. However, Harpie Lady 1 is actually still somewhat useful for its 300 attack point increase for all wind monsters. Unfortunately, it increases the attack of all wind monsters, not just your wind monsters, but whatever. Due to the name change issue, I run 2 copies of Lady 1 because it is probably the most effective hard-named Harpie Lady available. Harpie Dancer is the scourge of back row when Hunting Ground is on the field, for her return effect nets at least 2 destroyed opponent spell or trap if she is not interrupted, more if you can put Channeler on the field with her additional normal summons effect. Outside of this effect, she's not really that useful, but she does have an advantage when summoned by Channeler of returning herself to her hand, and then normal summoning herself with her effect to get around the defense position condition of the summon if an XZ play is not the desired option. 2 copies. If Baby Pet Dragon could innately special summon itself in some way, then maybe it would be useful. Unfortunately, that is not the case, and the simple reality is that for its effect to become useful, is just a bridge too far in overall consistency for the deck, because it really is almost entirely reliant on either Channeler to pull it from the deck or Hysteric Party to set up its effects. Overall, the first Harpie effect is not useful because of baby's stats. It just gets run over too easily. Its second Harpie effect is also rather lacking. 2400 attack doesn't go a long way for having to invest 2 monsters in addition to baby to get it. And while the 3 Harpie effect is nice, it has been power creeped in a sense because it is not quick play. A vast majority of the time, one needs to either run Inferno Reckless Summons or hit a successful Hysteric Party to get anything valuable out of this effect, and that's just not reliable enough for my tastes. The XZ variant of the pet, Harpie's Pet Phantasmal Dragon, used to be one heck of a boss monster with its annoying cannot be attacked or targeted and the extension of this effect to all other Harpie monsters. But unfortunately it has been power creeped with the arrival of Kaijus, Dimensional Barrier, and Ultimate Conductor Tyranno in its pesky one-sided Book of Eclipse effect with no drawback. It is definitely still worth running 1 copy, because there are some decks that really still have a problem dealing with it, and ironically, one of those decks is True Draco. Masterpiece can't touch it, and it can swing over Masterpiece 3 times to deal 6,000 damage, which usually will be enough to win. The Speller Trap support for Harpies is either high quality or rather bad. Triangle Ecstasy Spark is definitely not worth it, and falls into the rather bad category, because Sisters is definitely not worth summoning in the first place, and this card does little to support that summons. Phoenix Formation is one of those cards that really could have been good, but was burdened with one too many unnecessary restrictions. It almost seems like Konami wanted to make sure that this card would not be good enough to run competitively. The biggest problem is that double restriction of no battle phase and the inability to special summon from the main deck or extra deck, which makes this card very difficult to use properly because of the 3 or more Harpie requirement. This card could have been nice, but nope, sorry. Elegant Egotist is a nice solid 1 copy card, helping getting another monster on the field for swarming or XZ purposes. The fact that it's searchable via Hysteric Sign's on-field effect, either from the deck or from the graveyard, helps its efficiency even more. Unfortunately, due to the hard name issue for Harpie Lady monsters, Egotist does run out of fuel rather quickly, limiting the value in having multiple copies. Speaking of Hysteric Sign, it is definitely one of the high-quality support cards with the ability to add 3 Harpie cards to the hand when it is sent to the graveyard from the hand or field via any means. Sign will commonly be sent to the graveyard either via Hunting Ground, you popping it yourself, or being discarded from the hand via a discard cost-based card. Not surprisingly, the faster Sign hits the graveyard, the higher the probability that this deck wins. However, Sign's on-field effect is actually rather useful as well for both XZ plays, coupling it with Egotist, and deck thinning. Depending on the type of Harpie deck you want to run, 2 or 3 copies are appropriate. I run 3 copies. Cyber Shield is one of those OCG exclusives that was released way too late and is far too lacking in impact to actually matter. Harpie's Hunting Ground is one of the great trump cards in this deck, with the potential to net numerous free destructions that are rather difficult to counter, completely eviscerating the opponent's back row. In addition, Hunting Ground can commonly destroy Hysteric Sign, netting its effect. There was a time when that 200 extra attack was a liability in my eyes, making all Harpies sitting ducks for 103 Ragna 0, but since 103 has kind of dropped off the face of the earth in a sense, despite Zodiacs, this is not much of a problem. However, it is important to remember that Harpie's Hunting Ground's effect is mandatory, so if your opponent does not have any back row, you will have to pop one of yours, and most of the time it will be Hunting Ground. Due to the fact that it is searchable via Queen, I only run 2 copies for reducing the probability of drawing multiples into my hand, and the 3rd copy typically does not produce much overall value because it just comes too late in the duel. The newest piece of support, Harpie's Featherstorm, is definitely a high-quality card, for the ability to activate it from the hand with a Harpie on the field almost eliminates the ability of the opponent to address it. The fact that Storm negates all of your opponent's monster effects over the entire turn in a dimensional barrier-like blanket effect is rather nasty, and similar to Dimensional Barrier, has an almost skip-your-turn feel effect for the opponent, for no matter where the monster effect activates, it will be negated. As a Harpie card, another positive of Storm is it is searchable via Hysteric Sign. Similar to Sign, 2 or 3 copies are appropriate, depending on how the deck is designed. I run 2 copies. Finally, the coup de grace machine itself, Hysteric Party, is a rather ridiculous card, and if Harpies had more meta success, would probably be limited in some fashion. The discard is frequently immaterial because it will commonly be a Harpie monster, which can then just be revived by the effect of Hysteric Party, or Hysteric Sign, which, oh no, you get to add 3 Harpie cards to your hand at the end phase. What a horrible cost. If the opponent does not have an immediate means to remove Party from the field before you start making your extra deck plays, the opponent's win probability falls considerably. I run 3 copies due to its overall power. Well, that wraps up the Harpie cards, so what is next for the deck? Wait, what is that in the sky? It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's only Super Grover. It's Wind Witches. Well, I see that Harpies have some new allies in the sky. The Wind Witch engine works very well with Harpies as a means to provide excellent follow-up support when your opponent interrupts your Channeler play by destroying it before it gets its effect off, or negating its effect and destroying it with a card like Solemn Strike or Totally Awesome. It is also a nice standalone support, for a Crystal Wing that cannot be destroyed by opponent card effects is definitely quality. Finally, Snowbell as a level 1 tuner works very nicely in this deck, for its innate special summoning ability works in harmony with Channeler's effect to make level 5 or level 9 synchros like Hi-Speedroid Chanbara and Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier, when a rank 4 is not enough to get the job done. To this point, I run 3 copies of Ice Bell, 1 copy of Glass Bell, and 2 copies of Snowbell. I only run 1 copy of Glass Bell because I almost never summon multiple Crystal Wings, and Glass Bell is the weak link in the engine mechanism in my opinion. While 3 copies of Snowbell is definitely valid, I found that they just clogged in the hand a little too much, for without an Ice Bell or Channeler at the ready, Snowbell is more of a liability than a benefit. The remainder of the spells are on the light side, at 1 copy of Raigeki, 1 copy of Swallow's Nest for defensive purposes and hastening Channeler or Harpist summoning, and 1 copy of Instant Fusion for Norden. For the traps, I run 2 copies of Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, 2 copies of Icarus Attack, 1 copy of Torrential Tribute, and 1 copy of Solemn Warning as important traps to control the flow of the field. Another option is definitely Imperial Order for those interested, because the utilization of spell cards is not a high priority for this deck. For the remaining extra deck, I run the following: 1 Elder Entity Norden, 1 Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier, 1 Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, 1 Stardust Spark Dragon, although this can be really any level 8 Synchro you want, 1 Wind Witch Winterbell, 1 Hysteric Chanbara, 1 number S39 Utopia the Lightning, 1 number 39 Utopia, 1 Castel Skyblaster Musketeer, 1 Ice Beast Zerofyne, 1 Lightning Chidori, 1 Diamond Direwolf. I run this largely as a means to pop a Hysteric Sign that I have no other means to get rid of, 1 Gagaga Samurai, and 1 Gagaga Cowboy. In the end, Harpies have always been one of those archetypes on the verge of a breakout. The ability to completely destroy opposing back row with Hunting Ground, with little fear of Solemns and Dimensional Barriers, is a significant advantage for the deck, along with Hysteric Party as an incredible blowout card, and the potential large pluses produced by Hysteric Sign, and the constant plussing and deck thinning and speed associated with Harpist and Channeler. However, despite these strengths, Harpies never seem to get over that proverbial hump. One of the biggest reasons for this failure is that Harpies still suffer from the Blackwing problem, the dependence on their normal summons, to start most of their plays. Hysteric Party can help mitigate this problem somewhat, but clearly is not enough. Now, with the availability of Wind Witches to help further cover this problem, producing more power plays and more consistency, along with the ability of Harpie's Featherstorm to pour cold water, so to speak, on the opponent's explosiveness, Harpies should definitely make some inroads in the competitive environment. Well, that is my Harpie deck. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.